What's poppin', critics? We are back with another critical cinema movie review. My name is Micah, and I will be your host for today. And today we are reviewing Still Hope. This movie was written by Mitch Hudson and Randy McWilson, and it was directed by Richie Johns. Hopping into our cast, we have Luna Rivera. She plays our main character, Hope. We have John D. Michaels. He plays Garrett, the dad. We have Michelle Harrow. She plays Valerie, the mom. We have James Liddell. He plays Agent Romero. We have Wilma Rivera, who plays Jennifer, our retreat counselor. And we have Alex Vidoff, who plays Bishop, the head trafficker. This movie is a survival drama about a teenage girl who is abducted and trafficked. And after years of captivity, she is finally able to escape her traffickers, get help, and return home to her family, where she tries to rebuild some semblance of the life that she once had. Now, just for your information, this movie is based off of the real life encounters of two girls that did go through this tragedy. The movie starts by introducing us to Hope, who by all accounts seems to be a regular teenage girl while she's waiting for her family to get ready to go to church. In the opening scenes, we're introduced to her laying on her bed and she's texting some random person. We don't know who it is quite yet, but we do know that there is some type of familiarity. We also know that they have not met yet based on some of the messages that we are able to read. And of course, like any teenager at this age, she has not told her parents about her new boo thing. Now, sometime between going to church, the service ending, and them leaving, she has concocted this plan. Hope, that is, has concocted this plan where she is going to stay the night at her grandmother's house, who's played by Rosalind Gentle in this movie, and she's gonna sneak out and meet this new guy. Now, despite some pushback from her family because it's a school night and them being a little wary, like, you don't just be asking to stay at your grandmother's house. Like, what's up? They finally let her go. Now, once they get to Nan house, they got the movies up, they got the popcorn popped, and Hope is just buttering her grandmother up. No pun intended. But really, all of this is just in hopes of the plan. She's waiting on her grandmother to go to sleep so she can sneak out. Now, Nan does go to sleep, but when Nan go to sleep, it's not that type of sleep when you turn the TV off on old people and then all of a sudden they be waking up like, I was watching that. I'm talking about that type of sleep, like gone to the world. She was getting Snorlax levels of Z's in. She was sleeping so hard. She was sleeping as hard as your uncle be sleeping on Thanksgiving Day post meal while y'all watching the game that don't nobody really care about. Yeah, she was sleeping like that, mouth agape and everything. But now that Nan's sleep, Hope, she gets ready to go get ready for her date. And there's a specific scene as she's getting ready where Hope looks in the mirror and she looks at her phone and then she sets her phone down on the dresser. And as a viewer, it's one of those scenes where you're just like, oh God, I can tell that this is a bad idea. And mind you, the only reason she's leaving her phone is because her parents can track her. And like I said, she's a teenager. We all remember those times where we just wanted some autonomy to do what we wanted to do. That's really all this is. But she ends up sneaking out. She leaves her phone behind. And when she walks outside, she walks up to this car, right? And I won't lie, I might be a little bit of a hater for saying this, but this handsome Squidward Rico Suave looking mug hop out the car. And his name is, he introduces himself as Trevor. He's played by Daniel Farrell. And of course, he does all the things a gentleman should do on the first date. He looking at her like, dang, ma, you look beautiful. You look stunning. He opened the door for her. Everything. Now, during the ride, he is super vague about where they're going, what they're doing, who they meeting up with, if they are meeting up with anybody. He's just not giving too much information. But they end up at a bowling alley. They doing their thing, they scoring. He ends up running into some of his friends from school. At least that's what they say, right? While they chopping it up, Hope's like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom while you chop it up with them. While she's in the bathroom, she ends up running into some old girl. She hating, for real. She like, yeah, you better hop on that, cause all the girls at school want it. You better hop on for somebody else get off. Just hate, right? But she walked back out. She walked back to Trevor. He like, yeah, I went and got some drinks for us. So they end up getting done with bowling. As they're walking out, Hope stumbles. She got a couple signs of intoxication. Now, I already told y'all what type of movie this is. So you and I know she got drugged, but Hope don't know she got drugged. So Hope just thinks she feeling sick or something. She tell Trevor, he's like, yeah, I got you. He pulls into the gas station, but my man pull in far as hell from the gas station. And Hope even mentioned that. She like, why you so far? He's like, oh, it's all good. I'm just run in and I'm gonna run back out. Mind you, by the time he run in, there's a black truck that's already there ready to snatch Hope up, and that's exactly what happens. Fade to black. Now, before I continue on, I do want to issue a trigger warning because even though the movie is not graphic with how it handles this subject matter, this topic can be very striking and hard to deal with for anybody who has experienced any type of assault or trafficking themselves or knows anybody who has. But because we are critical cinema review, we have to keep it 110% real over here, no sugarcoating, and that means telling the story exactly the way the directors wanted it told. With that being said, this is your trigger warning, and we are going back to the review. So Hope wakes up and she's being tattooed, right? And if you know anything about trafficking, this is a way that they try to demean the people that they capture, right? They try to basically make them into animals. In some cases they tattoo them. In other cases they actually brand them. This is just a semblance of control for them. But literally right after she's tattooed, Hope gets beaten, threatened, and then has her family threatened. He's like, if you try anything we don't like, if you try to escape, if you talk crazy, he said, we will kill your family, right? Which is just another form of control that they're trying to exercise over her. And it is absolutely despicable. It's disgusting behavior, right? And shout out to the actor, cause my man's made me feel it for sure. And that's how you know you're doing your job as an actor, when we don't like you. But after all of this threatening and beating, right, she gets taken on her first job. But then once they are bringing her back, they beat her again, and then they end up shooting her up with some drugs, the ones that require spoons, if you know what I mean. They really laying it on her first day. They didn't did her in. Now at this point, right, we go back to the family. They've already talked with the police, right? But they really only have one lead, which is from Hope's phone, and that's who she was texting before. The number has been disconnected, and that's really all they have to go on. So her family and friends and her church community, they're outside, they're passing out flyers like, have you seen this person? They're posting them up. Thankfully, they're able to run into one of the guys that was actually working at the bowling alley who recognized Hope from when she was there, and he helps get them footage of who she was with. Fast forward, a couple weeks have gone by now, and Hope is on her way from another job. Bishop, the trafficker, right? He ends up getting her some McDonald's, which makes her throw up, cause but after she's thrown up in the car, they stop. They making a big ruckus of it, right? While they're cleaning it out, Hope is standing there and she looks over at the wood. And in that split second, she makes a decision. I'ma run. So she kick off them heels and she book it. And while she's running through the woods, they don't recognize for a little second. They don't even realize she's going. But she's running through the woods and she ends up tripping, right? Classic white girl trope. Just tripped hard as hell. But she gets back up, she keep booking it again. While she's running, she ends up seeing some light on the house and she runs towards them. But some reason, I have no idea why, she stops at the tree line. I don't know if it was fear. I don't know if it was like awe in the fact that she's like, I'm really about to escape, or what it was. I'm not really sure what it was. But she stops at the tree line and then she starts running again. And as soon as she starts running again, Bishop comes out of nowhere with a Randy Orton level spear and just plow runs her over, right, and drags her back into the woods. Now I have to drop a PSA here. If you are captured and you escape, and that's from anything, that if it's a kidnapping, if it's trafficking, if it's that crazy ex that you got and throwing you in a trunk, whatever it might be, if you get the chance to run, do not stop running, okay? Hide when necessary, but do not free, because hesitation will get you killed. I believe G Herbo said that. And also, I have to say, please, if you already do it, wonderful, but if not, take some self-defense classes. I am a huge advocate for self-defense classes, especially for women and children. Do anything that you find most enjoyable when it comes to that. I personally would say for everybody, the two best ones to start off with: boxing, wrestling. They're great defensive, great offensive, and they will help you get out of almost any situation. That's just my little PSA though. Back to the review. A year has passed now, right? And Hope, she's gotten out of the basement, right? She's not getting shot up with no opioids no more. You know, she got herself her own room. She laying on a real bed. But now she has kind of embodied this trafficked persona, because now she's going by the name Blaze. She's popping pills voluntarily, which I can only assume is to help cope with the trauma and the pain that she's dealing with. But we are also introduced to a girl named Kylie, who, upon her telling us, she voluntarily came here. And I guess she got into it from her boyfriend. That's a whole backstory that gets explained a little bit later. But that's a new character we're introduced to. Now, the most heartbreaking scene in this movie, and it really lit a fire in me, is there's a point where the same people who ended up trafficking Hope, right? This Trevor, his friends, everybody that was involved, they end up targeting this little redhead girl. And I swear to you, this young lady cannot be more than 9, maybe 10 years old, right? And they end up trapping her with a dog, right? So the young lady that they were with, she's walking around the neighborhood and she's like, oh, hey. She's like, do you want to pet my dog? Yeah. She's like, yeah, my friend in the car over there, he has a whole box of puppies if you want to go see him. She's like, yeah, of course. She go over there, get snatched. And like, y'all, this should just be a warning to anybody out there. Men and women can be predators. All right, we need to know that. I know there's a lot of man hate out there. I know that everybody is against men right now, but I'm letting y'all know anybody can be a threat. Anybody can be dangerous to you or your kids. Okay, and if you have seen the movie Sound of Freedom, which also falls in line with this kind of storytelling, you'll know that women are absolutely wholeheartedly able to do some cold-blooded stuff when it comes to these children, right? So please be careful who you put your kids around. Be careful who you call friends and family. Now at this point, I'm not sure if the driver feels guilty from everything else that's happened or what, but he decides that he wants to go to the FBI and he wants to tell them about all the trafficking that's been going on, right? He decides that he wants to cut a deal for immunity. While I understand how our legal system works, right? It's all about catching the bigger fish. I think it's absolutely abhorrent that these type of criminals on any level are having deals made with them or being let back on the streets. It's absolutely diabolical. I just don't understand it. I advocate against it, but that's just me though. But due to this gentleman ending up coming in and telling about the traffickers, right? Trevor ends up getting caught, but this does alert all of the other traffickers that they were working with. So they get spooked, they break ranks, and at this point, the little redhead girl, she gets sold. We don't know what happens to her. Kylie, she gets taken with some other trafficker that was in the house. Boom, they leave. So at this point, it's just Bishop and Hope. And there are a couple chances that Hope has to get away or ask for help, and she just doesn't. Portrays how much psychological damage and manipulation that these victims really go through for them to have a clear path out, to have the light at the end of the tunnel and still not take the chance to go for it. I think the movie absolutely does an amazing job of portraying this type of psychological duality. So like I said, she had 2 chances to get out. It was one, they were staying in a hotel. Bishop ended up taking a shower. The door was right there. All Hope ended up doing was popping another pill and laying in bed. Hey, next day comes around, they end up going out to a diner. It's the first time Hope then ordered food for herself in over a year. This is like a whole new experience for her. Bishop ends up leaving to go outside and take a call. As soon as he leaves, you got some police officers that walk in and sit down, not even 2 tables away from Hope. And you can see it in Hope's eyes. She's like, ooh, should I do it? Should I not do it? And she's contemplating, right? And you even see one of these officers who's like looking at her. And they had this moment of like looking at each other and just nothing happens. As Bishop walks back in and he sits down, and you could tell on his face, he's spooked. He's like, oh my God, did she say anything? Did she not say anything? But everything goes off without a hitch. They eat their food, they dip. But I'm gonna be honest with you. After this close call, Bishop is paranoid, and my boy give Hope the Ike and Tina treatment. He just all upside the head against the wall. It's crazy, right? Now she bleeding out her nose, she bleeding out her cheek, right? Bleeding out her mouth. He like, all right, I can't just have you riding around in the car looking like this. So he stops by a mall so that she can get cleaned up. And while she's in the bathroom, bless this woman's soul, she comes out and she sees Hope crying at the counter. And you know, many of us are not bold enough in this individualistic society that we live in to see somebody crying like that and really ask what's wrong or do they need help. And in this case, she ended up saving Hope's life, because who knows what was going on past this, right? This is the only time I'll ever say thank you for a nosy white woman, man. Thank God for a nosy white woman, because she really helped save this young lady's life. Now fast forward, it's maybe about a week or two. Hope is finally reunited with her family. She's still in the hospital. She's going through withdrawals from all of the opioids and the pills and everything. She's getting medical attention, but Hope is having a very rough time reintegrating back into her old life, especially since nothing is normal for her anymore. You know what I'm saying? She, at this point, she's almost been gone for like 2 whole years. So everybody she was classmates with is now getting ready to graduate. Her grandmother has passed and she didn't even know it. She can't even touch her dad. Like, she can't even let her dad hug her because of all the sexual trauma she's been through. And this young lady is having one nightmare after another, one panic attack after another, and she is really just going through it. After some time passed, right? She's been home and they've tried to do this their way. Her parents sit her down and they recognize that maybe she needs to get like some real help, some help that being around family and friends and familiarity just won't do. So she decides to go to this Christian group home that specializes in rehabilitating formerly trafficked girls. And while she's there, she meets her counselor. And through this process of us seeing Hope get acclimated to this new environment, seeing us and being around other girls who have been through this same trauma, there's a scene where we get this very relatable and heartfelt speech where she's talking about how she will never be able to forgive her traffickers for what they put her through and the trauma that they imposed on her. But we are in the same conversation shown that she is a survivor, right? Her counselor is reminding her of how much of a survivor she is, how strong she had to be to not only go through all of that and still come out on the other side, but to actually ask for help. You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot of courage to be in that type of situation where you have constantly been threatened and you don't know what the outcome will be, yet you still have taken the chance to reach out for help and try to escape these people who are doing you absolutely no good. So I think that was a beautiful scene, and it really reinforces that this is not on the victims. Victims have nothing to be ashamed about. They have nothing to fear, especially after these attackers have been put away. This has nothing to do with them. They are strong, capable individuals who had something traumatic happen to them, but that it does not have to define them. And I thought that was just a beautiful thing that was portrayed in this movie. Now, I will say, as we go through the third act of this movie, this is really a healing portion of the story, right? Where we see Hope get to work through some of this trauma. You see towards the end how that psychological portion of it really can play a major factor in how these girls move throughout the world, because despite them both hating how they felt, hating the people that put them in those situations, Hope was willing to stay and work through it, while Kylie, she decided, I'm going back to the streets. Apparently she's found some dude that made all of these promises of her being able to stay there and whatever. You just clearly see the two different psychological paths that can be taken when something like this happens. Now, as she goes, we see Hope start to gain faith in the situation, and she realizes that forgiveness is not for the people that hurt her, it's for herself. And I love that this is a faith-based movie, so they do a lot of reference to the Bible without being overly like preachy, you know what I mean? They do reference back that Jesus only forgives those that are able to forgive others, and it makes the point the forgiveness is not for them. It's so that you are not having them live rent-free in your mind, that you are not dwelling on the past, wishing how much you could get something back or how much you could hurt that person for hurting you. It's releasing everything that they have done to you, knowing that the Lord is your sustainer, that the Lord is your provider, that he is going to keep you even when you don't feel that you can be kept, even when you feel that you are unworthy of being kept. That's really where the whole movie lands. And it ends on this beautiful baptism scene where see Hope, she's giving her life to the Lord and she's being baptized. She goes under the water and it does a cut between her being dipped in this water and her being in the basement. And as she's in this basement, she starts to walk up the stairs. And as she's walking up the stairs, it's cutting back to her being drawn out of the water. And as she's being drawn out of the water, right? Like I said, it's all symbolic. She's coming out of that past life, coming out of that past trauma into this new life. She's being born again. And when she finally walks up those stairs, she walks up those stairs into this beautiful, open, luscious field of greenery, which can only be tied to Christ. And that's life everlasting right there. And I just think cinematically, it was a beautiful way to end the movie. And I think it was a beautiful way to just put a stamp on such a heavy yet well-told story. Overall, the movie was beautifully handled, and it handles it with a level of grace and care that I just find applaudable. So shout out to the cast, the crew, the writers, and the director for making a story that not only provides a voice and perspective for those that have been affected by this, but it also provides an insight for people that may not necessarily know about the things that are involved in trafficking or how it affects not just the individuals who have been trafficked, but also their loved ones. With all that being said, let's get to the critical review so we can break it down. For storyline, I am going to give this a 9.6 out of 10. As I stated before, the movie handles very difficult subject matter well and gives perspective on how these former victims deal with these situations. The only reason I can't give it a 10 is because because of one scene, and that's Hope leaving her phone. Because I ain't gonna lie to you, and today in 2026, I don't know one teenager that can leave their phone anywhere without reaching for that bad boy. What I think would have been more realistic is her either taking the phone with her and turning it off, or her like disabling an app or something like that. I feel like that would have been more realistic for today's society, but nonetheless, it works. 9.6 for storyline. For character development, I have to say I give this a 7.5 out of 10. The biggest character arc that we have is for Hope, of course, but I also see a lot of maturity in the relationship between Hope and her father, as well as seeing the regression of Kylie's character. It provides perspective on how hard it can be to break that cycle. So I think seeing all of those different character arcs and even the interconnectedness of them really lends to this movie as far as character development goes. So 7.5 out of 10. For cinematography, I give this a 9 out of 10. I've said it and I'm gonna keep saying it. This movie is very well shot. It does not waste a lot of time. I believe the runtime on this is like an hour and 45, hour and 50. It's getting close to clocking that 2 hour mark. But this movie does not waste any cuts at all. And I would say even from a cinematic perspective, when we are dealing with the traffickers, when we're dealing with those dark moments, the shots seem darker. They seem more close up. They seem more trapping, right? And I think that really helps play to the theme and emphasis of what's going on in those exact moments. And to contrast that, right, whenever we get to the point where she is on the retreat or she's finally running free, like that when she breaks free that first time, they are very wide shots, very open shots where you can really see everything that's going on and you can feel the emotion that's there. I think the cinematography adds to the story in every way and helps really reinforce the message that they're trying to get across. For rewatchability and enjoyability, I would give this a 7 out of 10. The movie, I believe, is a very good movie for a parent to show their kids, especially when talking about things like what can happen if you are not cautious of who you're going out with or who you're allowing into your life, who you allow to give you drinks and who you allow to be in your space like that. And like I said before, I think it does a great job of spreading awareness and showing respect for the former victims, as it's a whole net positive for the cinematic community. I think this movie and other movies like it are going to become the norm, because I don't know about y'all, but I want to get back to stories that have meaning, that have heart pull, that really force us to think. But that's just me though. Now, with all of those being said, my overall review for Still Hope is going to be an 8.2. And I've said everything, and I won't continue to beat a dead horse, but I would just like to mention that Big Cinema did force this movie to come out during the Super Bowl. And I think it is quite interesting that that was the case, considering everything that's been going on with the Epstein files and how we've really been looking at this. So I encourage you to go see this movie in theaters, but go out, support this film, because it's films like this and independent filmmakers that make films like this and focus on stories like this that are actually going to drive the needle when it comes to movies and TV shows that we actually want to see, that have messages that we really care about. Nobody should ever have to deal with this type of trauma. And even if you do have to deal with this type of trauma, you should not have to deal with it alone. So I am going to list the trafficking hotline right here, as well as the sexual assault hotline right down here. Please, y'all, if y'all see something, say something. And with all that, we out. If you made it to the end of this video, I want to say thank you. And if you like this video and want to see more movie reviews like this, please like and subscribe. That way the algorithm knows that this video is worth watching, and turn on your notifications to know when we drop more. If there are any movies that you'd like me to review, please leave a comment below and I will try to get to them as fast as I can. Until next time, fellow movie lovers, stay blessed and stay critical. We out.